If I had $15,000 to spend on a used vehicle today, these are the first 5 vehicles I would start searching for. Not because they are the newest, not because they have the most technology, and definitely not because every example is automatically going to be a good vehicle. These are the 5 that give me the best combination of reliability, comfort, availability, long-term ownership potential, and overall value, provided you buy the right one. And number 1 has become the vehicle I would probably recommend to more people than anything else on the used market. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Auto Auction Maverick. For about a year and a half, I worked as a professional vehicle buyer for a dealership. I spent countless hours walking auction lanes, evaluating vehicles, studying Carfax reports, estimating repairs, and trying to find reasons not to buy a car before I committed the dealership's money to it. This series was inspired by a Facebook post Roadrunner Auto made on July 24th. They asked the public a simple question. If you had around $15,000 to $20,000 to spend on a used vehicle today, what would you be shopping for? This is a question that I felt particularly qualified and particularly inclined to answer. I came up with 15 vehicles, but instead of putting everyone through one extremely long video, I'm breaking these lists into 3 separate parts, and we're not starting at number 15. We're starting with my 5 strongest recommendations, because if you only watch one video in this series, I want you to see the vehicles I would be most comfortable buying with my own money. One important disclaimer: I am recommending models, engines, and generations, not every individual vehicle wearing these badges. Maintenance history, ownership history, condition, accident history, and the quality of the previous owner still matter more than the name on the grill. With that said, let's start with number 5. All right, so this is going to be your 2007 to 2011 Honda CR-V. Okay, the 3rd generation Honda CR-V earns the number 5 position, and I want to explain why it isn't ranked higher. It is not because I think the CR-V is unreliable, quite the opposite. This is one of the safest and easiest used vehicle recommendations you can make. You get Honda's proven 2.4 liter 4-cylinder K24 engine, a traditional 5-speed automatic transmission, available all-wheel drive, good fuel economy, excellent practicality, and relatively straightforward ownership. The reason it ranks 5th is value. CR-Vs have such a strong reputation that sellers know exactly what they have. You are usually going to pay more for one than you would for several mechanically solid alternatives. I call that the Honda tax. You are paying for the reputation, resale value, familiarity, and the fact that nearly everybody shopping for a compact SUV has considered buying a CR-V. That does not make it a bad purchase. It simply means I expect cleaner vehicle, better maintenance history, and fewer miles when I pay the CR-V premium. Here's what I would inspect. On an all-wheel drive model, I would want to know whether the rear differential fluid has been serviced properly. I want to make sure the air conditioning gets cold and stays cold. Honda issued a warranty extension involving the AC compressor clutch on some 2007 to 2011 CR-Vs, but these vehicles are now well beyond that coverage period. I'm also checking suspension noise, rust underneath the vehicle, especially here in the Midwest, and evidence that the engine oil was changed consistently. The timing chain engine is a benefit, but a timing chain is not an excuse to neglect oil changes. The bottom line, if your number 1 priority is finding uncomplicated, dependable transportation, the CR-V absolutely belongs on your shopping list. But if you ask me where I can get the most vehicle for the same amount of money, I would usually begin my search elsewhere. All right, so number 4, 2009 to 2012 Toyota RAV4. At number 4 is the 3rd generation Toyota RAV4, but I'm not recommending every engine equally. This is where understanding the exact model year and engine matters. My preferred 4-cylinder version is the 2009 to 2012 RAV4 with the 2.5 liter engine. Toyota introduced that engine in the RAV4 for 2009. It is a better long-term bet than the earlier 2.4 liter. It uses a timing chain, it runs on regular fuel, and it gives you a strong combination of fuel economy and dependability. The other version I would seriously consider is the 2006 to 2012 RAV4 with the 3.5 liter V6. That V6 makes 269 horsepower, and it turns an otherwise practical compact SUV into something that is legitimately quick. It is one of those vehicles that does not look particularly exciting until you press the accelerator. The version that I would be careful with is the 2006 to 2008 2.4 liter four-cylinder version. I would approach that much more carefully. I'm not claiming that every one of those engines is bad. Plenty of them have accumulated substantial mileage. The issue is that Toyota acknowledged excessive oil consumption in certain RAV4s equipped with that engine. When you have a budget up to $15,000, I do not see a compelling reason to take the additional risk when you usually move into the later 2.5 liter version or find a V6. Here's what I would expect. Beyond checking the engine oil level and maintenance history, I want to listen carefully during a cold start. Inspect for cooling system leaks, check the suspension, verify the transmission operates smoothly, and look underneath for corrosion, especially right under the rockers, in between the front and rear tires. On a V6, I would pay particular attention to signs of cooling system leakage and make sure the vehicle has not been neglected simply because the owner assumed that every Toyota lasts forever without maintenance. It happens. Bottom line, for the average buyer, my choice is the 2009 to 2012 2.5 liter. For someone who wants more power and does not mind sacrificing a little fuel economy, the V6 is the more enjoyable version and underrated of Toyota's SUVs from this era. So before we get into my top three, hit the subscribe button if this is your kind of used car information you find valuable. I'm not building these lists by copying an online reliability ranking. I'm looking at these vehicles from the perspective of somebody who had to inspect them, study their histories, estimate their problems, and decide whether they were worth risking real money on. That is what Auto Auction Maverick is about, helping you understand not only what to buy, but which versions to buy, and what you need to inspect before you buy them. Now let's move into the top three. So number three is going to be the Lexus ES 350. The original version of this focused on the 2007 to 2012 ES 350 that remains one of the strongest value ranges. However, with a $15,000 ceiling, I would also consider a well-maintained 2013 to 2015 example, and potentially a higher mileage 2016, if the condition and history justified it. The ES350 gives you Toyota-based mechanical dependability combined with a noticeably quieter cabin, a smoother ride, more comfortable seats, better materials, and more premium overall experience. The 3.5 liter V6 is smooth, powerful, and uses chain-driven camshafts rather than a routine replacement timing belt. This is the kind of luxury car I like because the luxury experience does not automatically come with German luxury car repair bills. Why it ranks third, the ES350 ranks about above the RAV4 and CR-V because I believe it gives you more vehicle for the money. Used sedan demand is not what it once was because so many shoppers automatically believe they need an SUV. They can create an excellent value for the person who does not need all-wheel drive or the cargo area of a crossover. A clean ES350 can give you a better interior, better highway comfort, more power, and fewer miles for the same money. That buys an older, more heavily used compact SUV. Here's what I would expect. On certain 2007 to 2008 examples, I want proof that the updated VVTi oil hose was installed. I'm also checking for engine oil leaks, cooling system condition, suspension noise, wheel bearing noise, uneven tire wear, and complete maintenance records. I would rather buy an ES350 with 150,000 miles documented and well-maintained miles than one with 100,000 miles, 3 previous accidents, and no meaningful service history. The bottom line, if you want a comfortable highway car, a quiet daily driver, or an affordable luxury sedan without signing yourself up for endless repair bills, the ES350 is difficult to beat. It is not the sportiest vehicle on the list. It may be the most relaxing. Before I reveal my top two, tell me something in the comments. Would you rather own the Lexus ES350 with more features, comfort, and power, or spend the same amount on a Honda CR-V because you prefer the practicality and resale value of an SUV? There is no universally correct answer. That choice says a lot about what different buyers actually value. and I want to know which direction you would go. All right, number 2, 2007 to 2018 Acura RDX. If you watch any of my videos, I love the Acura RDX. I am combining the first 2 generations because they are both excellent values for completely different reasons. The first generation, the 2007 to 2012, the first generation RDX is the enthusiast's choice. It uses a turbocharged 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engine, a timing chain, and in the all-wheel drive versions I prefer, Acura's excellent SH all-wheel drive system. It produces 240 horsepower and 260 pounds-feet of torque, and it feels much sportier than the typical compact SUV from this period. This is the vehicle that originally sat at number 1 on my list because it can often sell for Honda CR-V money while giving you more performance, a better interior, and much more sophisticated all-wheel drive system. However, it also requires a more disciplined buyer. I want detailed oil change history because a turbocharged engine is less forgiving of neglected oil. Acura specified synthetic oil for this engine, and I would want evidence that the previous owner treating it accordingly. I'm listening carefully during the cold start, checking for unusual timing chain or valve train noise, inspecting the turbo system, watching for smoke, checking for fluid condition, this means taking off the radiator cap, and making sure the SH all-wheel drive system has been serviced. The second generation RDX follows an almost completely different philosophy. Acura removed the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and replaced it with a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6. The result is smoother power and quieter and more relaxed driving experience, and an RDX that will probably appeal to a wider range of buyers. But there is an important trade-off. The first generation turbo engine is chain-driven. The second generation 3.5-liter V6 is belt-driven. That does not make the second generation RDX unreliable. Honda and Acura have used variations of this V6 architecture in an enormous number of vehicles. It means the timing belt history becomes one of the first things I investigate. If you cannot evaluate when the timing chain or the timing belt has been replaced, walk away. Every second generation RDX is now old enough that I would want documentation showing whether that timing belt and water pump have been serviced. If the seller cannot provide it, I do not automatically walk away, but I assume the service is due, price the job into my offer, and do not spend my entire $15,000 budget buying the vehicle. On another distinction, the second generation's available all-wheel drive system is not the same super handling all-wheel drive system found in the early RDX. It is a simpler system aimed more at everyday traction than performance handling. Bottom line, choose the generation if you want the sportier, more unique, enthusiast-oriented SUV, and you can verify that it's been maintained properly. Choose the second generation if you want something smoother, newer, quieter, and more conventional, but do not ignore the timing belt. Either one can represent substantially better value than a similarly priced CR-V. All right, number 1, 2007 to 2015 Lexus RX 350. My number 1 used vehicle under $15,000 is the Lexus RX 350. I am primarily talking about the 2007 to 2015 models. You may occasionally find a high mileage 2016 near or below $15,000, but I would treat them as an individual opportunity, not on the normal market. For the majority of shoppers, the realistic target is the earliest 2007 RX 350 through the end of the 2015 model year. Why it ranks number 1. The RX 350 is not number 1 because it dominates every individual category. The RDX is more entertaining. The CR-V can be less expensive to operate. The RAV4 may feel more practical to some buyers. The ES 350 may give you an even better highway ride. The RX 350 is number 1 because it does nearly everything well. It is comfortable. It is quiet. It has a strong 3.5-liter V6, same V6 we mentioned in the ES 350. It has a useful cargo space. It is available with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It has a premium interior without being unnecessarily complicated. And there are enough of them on the market that a patient buyer can afford to reject the bad ones and wait for the correct combination of condition, mileage, history, and price. The 2007 to 2009 RX 350, the earliest RX 350 models, can represent a tremendous value. They are older, but a well-kept one can still be comfortable and dependable daily driver for substantially less than $15,000. On certain examples, I want to verify that the VVTi oil supply hose update was completed. I am not merely checking whether the engine currently has oil, I want to know whether the updated part was installed and whether there is evidence of previous leakage. The 2010 to 2015 RX 350 generation is probably the sweet spot for this video. It gives you more modern design and interior while retaining the qualities that made the RDX successful in the first place. Those are the models I would focus on if I had the most of the $15,000 budget available. On some earlier vehicles in this range, I am expecting the engine oil cooler pipes for leakage or seepage. Across every model year, I'm checking the water pump and cooling system, suspension, condition, wheel bearings, oil leaks, transmission operation, all-wheel drive service where applicable, underbody rust, accident history, and evidence that the previous owner actually maintained the vehicle. The most important point, do not buy one simply because it is a Lexus RX. At this age, the owners matter as much as the odometer. I would rather have a 160,000 mile RX with 1 or 2 careful owners, consistent service records, and a clean history than a 105,000 mile example that changed hands repeatedly and was maintained only when something broke. That philosophy applies to every vehicle in this series. I do not just buy cars, I buy their previous owners. Bottom line, if somebody I cared about came to me with $15,000 and asked me to help find one comfortable, versatile, dependable, used vehicle that could serve them for years, the RX 350 would probably be my first search. It is not perfect. No 15-year-old vehicle is. But as a total package, I believe it gives the average buyer the best combination of reliability, comfort, practicality, availability, resale value, and long-term ownership potential in this price range. This is why the RX 350 is number 1. Those are my top 5 used vehicles under $15,000. Number 5 was the 3rd generation Honda CR-V. Number 4 was the Toyota RAV4, specifically the later 2.5 liter or the V6. Number 3 was the Lexus ES 350. Number 2 included the 1st and 2nd generation Acura RDX. And number 1 was the Lexus RX 350. Now, I want to hear your opinion. Which one of these 5 would you spend your money on? And more importantly, which vehicle do you think deserves to appear in the remaining 10? This is the only first video of the 3-part series. In part 2, I'm moving into the next 5 vehicles I would recommend under $15,000, and some of those recommendations are going to be less obvious than what you saw today. So subscribe to Auto Auction Maverick so you do not miss the rest of the list. My goal with this channel is not to convince you that one particular vehicle is perfect. It is to help you understand the differences, recognize the risks, inspect the right areas, and make smarter decisions with your own money. Thanks for watching. I'm Riley. This is Auto Auction Maverick, and I'll see you in the next one.